600 questions. 600 questions. That's how many questions were in this recent vendor questionnaire, cybersecurity questionnaire that one of my clients recently received. And man, these things take up a lot of time. We're spending up to a full-time FTE with some people, with some companies that are just dedicated to responding to all these questions they're getting from vendors and partners. And it can take a lot of time, and unfortunately that time translates to money for your business. And so one of the things we do at Asher Security is we help implement a vendor management process. And part of that is how we qualify external vendors, and then how do we respond to vendors that we have or that want our business. And so it's kind of a two-way street. It's kind of nice to start on the respondent side to see what kind of questions people are asking. And then as we mature the program, the tables start to turn eventually, and we're the ones really going out and making sure that the vendors that we're working with are taking care of our data securely. So we play both sides of the table, and by doing that, it gives us a clear landscape of what's going on and the right questions to ask, because you don't want to ask 600 questions. So this article is for those of you that are interested in maybe improving your process, improving the efficiency in answering all these questionnaires. And the one thing I just want to tell you right away, unfortunately, is no one's reading these. You know, you're spending a lot of time answering these, trying to cross the T's and dot the I's, and unfortunately, very few of them even get read. And what I mean by that is, there's someone sitting behind the desk, and they've got the task of sending out all these vendor questionnaires, and then they're getting them emailed back. Oftentimes what they're doing is they're just looking in a spreadsheet. How do we manage all these vendors? Have we sent them a questionnaire? We provided some kind of due diligence. Has that vendor responded? And then are there any outstanding risks that need to be addressed based on the answers of those questionnaires? If you make it through 1 and 2, you're really 80% of the head of the pack, right? You're in that high 20% and you're doing good already. And so I just want to give you guys some peace and just some encouragement that even if you just take a run at these, you do what you can, you get it back to them, you're going to be doing pretty good, and you're probably not going to be threatening your relationship. And if they have a problem, and I've been on the other side of this, I just do a quick scan, I'm looking at it, and if there's a few questions maybe that I'm going to highlight, I'm going to sample, and then I would follow up. So you're going to have another opportunity to answer these. If they're not satisfied with the answers that you've provided, don't think about it as you're going to get kicked out of their partnership. It's not what it means at all. They're going to follow up. There's someone sitting behind the desk, unfortunately, doing all this stuff. My first point of advice is provide strategic answers, not tactical answers. So when you think about cybersecurity, you have kind of the vision of the company and the program, maybe even. And then you've got strategic ways, operations, and tactics. And I like to do our measurement and metrics reporting based on that systematic approach too. But when you're answering questionnaires, tell them at a high level. Like if they're saying, how do you know if a patch has been applied? Don't tell them what technology solution like Nessus or Rapid7 that you're running and how frequently, maybe every month or twice a month, and you review results and an engineer gets it. Just stay at a high level. Strategic answers are much shorter, and you can answer it by, we have a vulnerability management program. Boom. Okay. If they have any concerns, they can let you know. A lot of them are going to be like that, where you can really shorten your answers, focus on strategy, don't do tactics, because it also starts to reveal some of the security tools that you use as a company. And we really I like to classify that as internal data, so that's something that we wouldn't share unless we had an NDA in place anyway. Respond in buckets. When you do a high-level pass of all these, you can usually do a pretty good job of saying that fits into our patch management, that fits into our standards management, that fits into our vulnerability management, certificate management, policy management. There might be 6 to a dozen different programs that you have, pillars of your cybersecurity program, and you can respond to these questions based on what pillar of your program addresses their question. So again, that can save you a lot of time. Answer what you can. Don't feel, like I said before, that you have to answer everything. If you just take a run at it and get it back, and then put the IOTAS back on them to respond. Like, no, question 423 was really critical to us, and you didn't answer it. Fine, answer it then. you still eliminated the need to answer, 200 and some other questions. And then scope the questions. I recently met an amazing guy. I don't share names or businesses, but I was performing the assessment on his company. And he was a co-founder, and he was actually also fulfilling the role as CTO and CISO. And when he got my questionnaire, I said, we were on an initial kickoff call. I was invited in the last minute, so I didn't understand the scope of what this vendor was providing. He was nice enough to say, Tony, I'm also the security guy for my company, so if you just want to call, we can get through this pretty quick. And I took him up on the invitation. That's a guy from experience. We just jump on the phone and talk about it. You're going to move pretty quickly instead of emailing back and forth. We scheduled a quick meeting, and he was very kind and graceful in the way that he responded to me and said, hey, look, some of the questions, I think it's important to back up and just say, what service are we performing for your client? And they were performing a platform as a service. So the platform really, when you think about the boundaries of security and what they were responsible for, they weren't responsible for some of the encryption in transit. They weren't responsible for doing pen tests because they didn't have anything to do with the application sitting on top of the platform. So we're able to greatly reduce that risk questionnaire and the risk scoping of that questionnaire to really focus on how are you securing that platform, and it reduced our conversation exponentially. And you should do the same thing. So if you get a questionnaire, just take a quick minute and saying, why are these people asking this question? What's in scope for me to even answer this question? That can really help you reduce. And finally, what you'll notice over time, I don't know how long, comment below how long you've been, experiencing these questionnaires. What I noticed is they started about 5 years ago. They started simple, and now they're increasing. More and more vendors are using them. So we're getting more questionnaires, and the volume of the questions within the questionnaires are growing. And I think that this is just going to be a trend for a while because other businesses are trying to cover their behinds by making sure that they're doing due diligence on their data when it's being shared externally, which can be a good thing. But what you'll notice is a lot of these questions through different vendors are the same. And so build a template. We talked about pillars of your program. We talked about responding what's in scope. Put a template, and maybe just for the first 5 to 10 of these questionnaires, save them to a directory where you can open it up later and review how you answered that before. A lot of this can just be copied and pasted. And it's really good if you're an engineer level to run these answers by your director or manager and just get an attestation like, yeah, this is an appropriate way to respond. And then you can use that templated set of answers without anyone providing a review again. Sometimes when I'm revealing things about a client, I definitely want to get their permission. Is it this vendor is asking this degree of information? Maybe they even want a copy of your data classification policy or something that could be considered private or internal, depending on what your classification policy is. And I want to get their permission first, and by using a template, it reduces the time that you have to go out and get permission and ask other people things and create new answers and things like that. So it's going to improve efficiency. So I hope that's helpful. If you have other questions, feel free to reach out, share your horror stories below. Let me know if you've got any horrendous vendor security questionnaires that you're dealing with, and stay secure.